This is your energy update for June 5th through June 11th. This week, we're really going to be focused on our relationships with other people. So our focus is looking at where we are really scared to connect with other people. And this will cause us to feel very violent or aggressive or lash out at other people. And we're telling ourselves that we can't trust them, that they're being dishonest, and we're projecting all of that past experience onto them. So we're keeping them at a distance and pushing them away. And we're trying to move into this space where we are able to have transparent relationships with one another, have clear, open, honest communication. We can be both compassionate and empowered. So the word that came up when I was doing the energy readings was the matriarch, right? And not many of us have ever experienced a true matriarch, a healed feminine, divine feminine, right? So it's important to really give yourself space and play with that, because we put these two different things on one end of the spectrum and another, and we tell ourselves that we have to play against those, right? So you have the toxic masculine and you have the toxic feminine. And then right in that center is the divine masculine and divine feminine. So if you look at those traditionally toxic traits that dominant for the masculine and the submissive for the feminine, and you look at the violence and aggression tendencies and the extreme passive and timidness on the toxic sides of those two spectrums, and you put those together, so you get something that looks like compassionate but tolerates nothing, right? Is empowered and speaks up, but knows when to speak up and speaks up in a way that can be heard and is firm and assertive without being aggressive, right? So that's really what we're trying to work towards this week specifically. When we are doing that, we are really going to be moving through a lot of timeline shifts too, which is going to make it a little difficult, right? So the 5th through the 8th is a prime time to really, really, really work on those choices that we were talking about in the previous weeks. So as you are moving through the 5th through the 8th, there is a huge timeline convergence where many of the timelines come together. And this can cause a lot of friction and a lot of triggers in your experience, or a lot of weird, wacky things happening and reality glitches. However, it's also a huge, huge opportunity for us to manifest and to move into higher timelines, because they're right on top of each other, making that transition far easier. So paying attention to your choices and how you are choosing to navigate each situation and each moment will be critical for your success this week and going forward too. The full moon on June 3rd, since I'm posting this on Friday the 2nd, the full moon on June 3rd is a perfect time to release any barriers to your true authentic self, right? And that will really prime us for moving into this week, where we're starting to really navigate that and find that inner balance between those polarizing forces and express that in our own authentic way. Now, each person's going to look a little bit different for how their balance forms. So be mindful of that. Don't compare yourself to others. That being said, then we move into the 9th through the 11th. And the 9th through the 11th, there's a few crosses with the timeline. So there's going to be some triggers and some friction points, especially if you have not been really anchoring in those changes that we've been talking about. So really working through and trying to identify what your indications and warnings are when it comes to repeating cycles is going to be a huge, huge, huge successful venture for you. That being said, we have two different karmic cycles that are coming up for the collective. And the first is really focusing on balancing that solar plexus. So the solar plexus I like to call the ego center, the power center. So this is like where our ego likes to sit, and it's our self-confidence, our self-esteem, but it's also our action center. It's where we get the energy to really do and express, and it's where we're empowered, and it fuels all of our choices. So when it's underactive, we fall into that toxic feminine where it's submissive, timid, full of self-doubt, unsure, insecure, those types of things. If it's overactive, then you have the toxic masculine traits where you're overly assertive and aggressive, and you're a little bit, you have violent tendencies, or you're feeling violent within yourself and not acting on it, right? And you're very territorial and dominant and trying to control other people. So when we're balancing that, it is really focused on our own true spheres of control, our choices, our actions, our responses, our beliefs, and our behaviors. That is what we have control over. We can influence other spaces, but we can't control them. So really focusing on balancing that and figuring out what is keeping you from stepping into your power. Why do you make yourself small when you're out in public, right? What would it take for you to really step into that full power of yourself and show up as your true self? Are you cloaking yourself, or are you overpowering yourself, trying to control the situation and control the environment that you're in? So focusing on balancing that this week is going to be very helpful for you. The second collective karmic cycle that's coming up is this idea that we have to fight fire with fire. And it's running at our root chakra. So that's safety, security, stability, connection to tribe, and family, right? So when we look at that, the fight fire with fire, this is where we're giving what we got. And if you give what you got, then you're going to get what you already had. Meaning, if I am attacked and somebody is verbally attacking me and is very angry with me, and they're insulting me in a very aggressive way, and I return that to them and respond in that same way, then it's just going to continue to perpetuate that cycle. And I'm going to attract more situations where people are aggressive and verbally confrontational to me. And then I'm going to have to return that and continue that over and over and over and over again. So the secret is stepping out of that. And instead of fighting fire with fire, you fight fire with water, right? The opposite energy, but in a balanced way. So I don't mean be completely passive and just let it go. I mean, step into that middle ground that we're working on this week and finding that power within yourself, speaking up in a confident but also compassionate manner where you're recognizing, hey, I see that you're triggered. Let's talk about it. Let's explore what's going on, why you're reacting this way, or something similar to that effect, right? So it's important to really respond from the center versus trying to meet them where they're at, because that's not going to get you anywhere. You're just going to be stuck in the same space, and they are too. So those are really the big themes that we're going to be encountering this week. I will go deeper in depth each day, so stay tuned and pay attention as I walk you through what's to come.